The commercial air travel routes for the southern hemisphere are wrong. This is an easy thing you can check out in 60 seconds. Take a map reading of the distance between anywhere near Australia and anywhere in South America. It's a straight shot across the South Pacific. Now find your favorite travel site and try to get there non-stop. See what happens. The routes start turning ridiculous. I used to business travel for years, and I've never seen anything like it. It's the one thing in the general public world they can't hide, the actual distance between these two places. On a round world, the flight is easy, just a straight shot across an ocean. But on a flat world, it becomes the greatest distance between 2 points. There are no shortcuts, so they distract you with multiple connections and layovers.
Also, what you need to understand is that there are no actual flight routes that go below the equator. And here's a perfect example for you. Let's examine the globe model and let us flatten the globe model and see it according to how pilots see it. So let's say now, for argument's sake, you want to travel from Chile all the way to Cape Town or South Africa. Would it not make sense to just take the flight from South America and travel across the ocean to Cape Town or to South Africa? Because that would be a much quicker distance and shorter distance to travel, rather than to go from South America all the way to Europe, and then from Europe make your way all the way down, all the way across the continent of Africa until you reach South Africa. Why would they do that? It does not make sense if we are looking at this from the globe perspective, because the globe does not make sense with the flight routes. However, when we switch gears and let's look at the other map, which shows everything on the same plane, the same flat earth map, when we see this same flight route, it actually makes more sense that it travels that way, because that is the only path that planes can travel to get from South America to South Africa. Observe what you are seeing right now, because that is the only path that they can be able to travel without burning off. They have no other choice but to travel in that same route, because that is the only option that they have. This standard map of the world also depicts and explains the path on which the sun travels around the earth.
And that's where we start, because it's one of our two basic childhood facts. 1 + 1 = 2, and the earth is a globe. We're taught this before almost everything else, and that right there should give you a clue on how serious this secret is. But for those who have forgotten their history, here's the modified Men in Black version. For the first 4,000 years of our civilization, we believed that the earth was a flattish disk, surrounded by a solid dome barrier called the firmament. All of the 5 major religions had their own version of this, and the churches enforced the belief. Then, around 1514, a man named Copernicus created a new model of the world. He stated that if the earth was spinning around 1,100 miles an hour and circling the sun at 60,000 miles an hour, the world was then round. And while the math more or less worked, there was a problem. It was 1500, and the technology to prove such a theory wasn't there. The first balloon to carry people wasn't invented until 1760. Sailboats were the only travel over water, and the fastest thing on land was a horse. But the new worldview was promoted and took hold. The religions adapted to handle the new reality, and life moved on. More importantly, the globe model was quickly introduced into the education systems. Over the next 500 years, the challenges to this model faded, to the point where the globe was accepted as universally as physical laws such as gravity. Read that again if you didn't absorb it. For 20 generations, people believed that the earth was round because there was a globe in every classroom they sat in. There was no proof. Hundreds of years went by, and still civilization had no way of proving the theory. Planes were invented around 1900, but until 1957, nothing could go high enough to give a true perspective of where we lived. And that's when everything got strange. The United States and Russia both sent up rockets high enough to take decent pictures, and what they saw scared them a great deal. How do we know they were extremely concerned about the sky? Because the US and Russia immediately started firing nuclear weapons straight up, and they kept firing for the next 4 years. A few things to keep in mind here. First, this was now 1958. Nuclear weapons were very expensive and hard to come by. These also weren't those nominal yield 20 kiloton toys we used on Hiroshima. This was high kiloton to low megaton, and we couldn't get them up fast enough. And the strangeness continued in other places. In 1959, only a year into the atmosphere bombardment, 10 nations, including the United States, made Antarctica off-limits to any colonization. A treaty was put in place and to this day remains intact. Over 50 nations now have signed off on this treaty. Do you know any treaty that has lasted that long between all industrialized nations? Moreover, do you know any piece of real estate in the world that is owned by no one? You would think at the very least one of the large oil companies would use their huge financial resources to explore this region, and yet they don't even petition the idea. The short version of the discovery is this. By 1958, the military had discovered the very solid upper and outer edges of our world, and had to create a way to put up do not enter signs without looking obvious. It was tricky, but if there is one thing I have learned about the authority, it's that nothing is left to chance. Most of the work had already been done for them, so their job was primarily in the details. The sky part of the dome was much higher than commercial air traffic, so the only thing they had to worry about there was the space program, which is immediately militarized. The outer border had the natural benefit of not only an extensive ocean, but a scaling decrease in temperature and a steady increase in iceberg frequency to discourage ships, all leading to a permanently frozen landmass that could not be used for any form of agriculture. This ocean and ice layout had worked well for thousands of years because the technology of the current civilization didn't evolve quickly. Sailors avoided cold weather seas whenever possible, and oxygen levels get low enough to harm people, even on high mountains. The brilliance of the design comes in the simple fact that human males are corrupted by power. Corruption so total, in fact, that they would rather hide the world itself rather than risk their power on it. You could theorize that kings and popes were told of the world a long time ago. Maybe an ancient scroll or book. Perhaps an interdimensional being told the tale of what the world looked like. But this was all but dismissed because even the most powerful leaders of the day couldn't reach the borders. And if they couldn't, what chance did the general public have? It's one thing to be told of the giant impenetrable dome, but it's a whole different animal when you finally stand right next to it. Then the tough decisions have to be made. Do we keep the secret? And how far are we willing to go to keep the status quo? Once they decided to keep the secret, no expense was spared. The rapid progression of rocketry science had to be addressed quickly, and so the moon missions were created. Matt from the NASA channel was right in his thinking that you needed the moon mission event to stage a picture of the Earth from deep orbit, and that couldn't be more true. Establishing NASA as the frontrunner of space exploration also diverted people who would have otherwise created their own space companies for profit. The best engineers, technicians, and pilots were recruited to the NASA space program. Once there, they were compartmentalized on a need-to-know basis. The astronauts know of the deception and are sworn to secrecy under the penalty of whatever motivates them. Private space programs are discouraged, sabotaged, or absorbed into the NASA fold. Private sector spacecraft are just not going to be allowed for several reasons. The most obvious is the collision with the dome itself. The telemetry data from such a mission would show an impact failure at a certain altitude, and if repeated, would raise questions NASA just isn't prepared to answer. There are 3 perpetual questions about our world that can't be eliminated, but avoided at all costs. These are the questions you should ask yourself and others if this protective layer is going to be lifted. I'd like to preface this with a thank you to Max Malone, a conspiracy hardcore who has a knack for boiling down debates to a single paragraph whenever possible. It was he who said, after over 50 years and thousands of hours of space travel footage, both by NASA and other countries, there is no exterior shot where the astronaut completes the simple act of panning the camera 180 degrees, let alone a full 360-degree sweep. This has never happened on any moon mission, exterior space station, nothing, ever. Statistics will tell you that this would have already happened by accident years ago, but it hasn't, and it won't. This is because of the rule they cannot break, the same rule that applies to television set shows that never show the fourth wall. Why? Because there is no fourth wall. Number 2. When you search online for pictures of the Earth from space, 95% of what you will see is a collection of artificial composite shots. In 2000, when I did this search, there was exactly one picture by NASA showing the bottom part of Africa and Antarctica. Now that picture is hidden within hundreds of simulated images. There are HD cameras everywhere, and no one is taking a shot of the Earth, because you can't get enough altitude to do it. Do your own homework. Ask the questions. Get past the possibility, and see if you can move into an even bigger picture, like who built the dome and why. That's where it starts to get really interesting, and things start opening up.
Now, getting back on topic with the flat Earth and showing how the firmament is above us, again with the sun and the moon within the firmament. And this is key here. From Genesis 1:14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament. This is within the firmament right there. So again, the churches don't tell you this, but this is the truth. Now let's look at evidence with video footage. Take a look as you see clouds behind the sun and in front of the sun. I'm also going to show some footage of the moon within the clouds, proving again how the Bible's truth. Clearly see, this is the sun, clouds behind, clouds in front. How is this possible if the sun is supposedly 93 million miles away? It's not. It's more like 1,000 to 3,000 miles away. Much smaller than we're told as well. You need to forget everything you were ever told in the history books, in schools, what NASA says, what the History Channel says. It's all lies. With this video, you can clearly see how the clouds are behind the moon. This is no illusion. The only illusion is what we're told in the school systems that are owned and operated by those that own and control this world, the anti-God system. The truth has always been in front of you. Right there. Just have to open your mind and let your eyes see the truth, which is right in front of you. People that don't believe in the Bible, they're completely deceived. Unfortunately, there's no turning back, and that's why they say, get them while they're young. The first thing you do when you step in a classroom as a child, first thing you see is you see a globe. Every classroom is part of conditioning and brainwashing, the anti-God system. And now I'm going to play a previous video explaining more of the flat earth model. And again, when the Bible states there's ends of the earth, understand. I'll explain this more in the video coming up. The ring of ice, Antarctica. This surrounds the flat earth. And of course, the UN flag just so happens to match the flat earth model. This is mockery. This is how Satan operates, and his minions. They love to mock. And for those that are new to the flat earth concept and can't grasp it, don't completely understand, a lot of people's first reaction is, won't we fall over the edge? It doesn't work that way. The edges of the earth, a huge ice ring, which is Antarctica. And the sun, like the Bible says, The sun moves, and the earth is stationary. It's fixed, immovable. So understand one simple thing. Everything we're told in the school system, in college, is the exact opposite of the Bible, just like evolution. How we all evolved from fish to monkeys to humans. The whole ball earth we're told in the school system is another lie. Everything we're told is a lie. And why do they lie to us about all this stuff? They want to be the ones that hold the knowledge. They want to mock God's people. I'm going to play this video. And there's no moon in this model, but understand one thing. The sun moves a bit faster than the moon. And one concept to also understand is, people that don't get it, at times you can see the moon and the sun in the sky at the same time during the day. That means on the other side of the supposed globe, there's no sun, there's no moon. Doesn't make sense at all. I'm going to play this clip. You can understand again how the sun works on a flat earth night and day. See, 3-hour time difference of the East Coast and the West Coast get their light. Exactly how it works. And the sun and the moon are much closer to Earth than we're told. Only a few thousand miles. The sun is not 93 million miles away. It's all lies by NASA, the government. We've been all lied to. And also to understand the solar eclipse, like I stated earlier, the sun and the moon move at different speeds. Just like a clock, the moon moves at different speed, a slower speed. That's how you get those eclipses, the solar eclipse. And also, I explained this before, with the 24-hour sunlight in Norway and in Alaska, and the sun moves when it spins around the earth. It moves as it spins in and out. So again, when it spins towards the center during the times of year that you get complete daylight in this region, the North Pole, the Arctic, that's why you get those 24-hour sun. And it doesn't happen in the south, the supposed southern hemisphere. For example, in the tip of South America, New Zealand, you never get those 24 hours daylight. And that's because, of course, as the sun moves around, it's not constant like it is in the Arctic. One other thing, the sun, how it moves from changing the seasons in and out. The sun, again, is furthest from the ice ring. So the further away you get, the colder it is, of course. This was holding everything in. Antarctica. It circles the entire flat Earth. I showed this clip before in a previous video. And this, again, is truth in plain sight with those that control Hollywood showing us the truth in these cartoons. This is how they do it. They love to put the truth in what seems to be ridiculous, such as cartoons, Illuminati card games, movies, commercials. This is how they do it. They love to mock us with truth with these ridiculous cartoons in this case. Take a watch.
Steroid Santa Claus kicks and deals. It's a long fly ball going back. And the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium.
Now do you understand how this matches up with the Bible verse in Genesis? The waters above. You people understand and get it, what's taking place here. This is biblical. And this is meant as mockery. When people watch this, They have no understanding what this is all about.
In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. The evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, in the firmament of the heavens, in the firmament of the heavens, in the firmament of the heavens. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. Fear before him all the earth. The world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. The Lord reigneth, he is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he hath girded himself. The world also is established, that it cannot be moved. Say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. For he looketh to the ends of the earth, and seeth under the whole heaven.
With all the videos I've been making about the flat earth over the last few months, I always get the same questions over and over again. I'm going to try to cover them in this one video. And probably the most frequently asked question is about the lunar eclipse. Of course, with this ball earth theory, you get the sun, the earth, and the moon. And with the sun casting a shadow on the moon, so you're only going to see that top portion. In this case, the top portion of the moon with the bottom portion being shadowed off supposedly by the ball earth. Before I show a clip of a couple in the St. Louis area recording a lunar eclipse taking place while the sun and the moon are above the horizon, they unwittingly prove that the earth does not create a lunar eclipse. Now, with this quote from F.H. Cook, The Terrestrial Plane, according to the global theory, a lunar eclipse occurs when the sun, earth, and moon are in direct line. But it's on record that since about the 15th century, over 50 eclipses have occurred while both sun and moon have been visible above the horizon. Now, before watching the video, wait till he gets to the part where he sees the moon and the sun above the horizon, and then he sees the shadow of the moon on the upper portion. It should be on the lower portion if we live in a ball earth. Take a look and listen to how he struggles to explain this, and he just calls it an illusion. Take a look and listen.
So it's December 10th, about 6:30 in the morning. It's about 18 degrees out here, and we're standing on top of Poke Mounds, just east of St. Louis. Behind me is a full moon, which will soon be going into a full lunar eclipse as it sets, kind of a rare experience, while at the same time behind us, the sun is already being derived. So it's going to be a very interesting and beautiful experience. Oh my God. So it's about 6:55, and as you can see, we're a little bit brighter out here. You can see the shadow creeping across the moon. It's a little hard to see, I'm sure, in the camera, but from here, it makes it clearly. It's about a third of the way covered. The moon is starting to turn nice and orange. Right shoulder, you can see now getting some nice early morning sun. It's getting very bright on the eastern horizon behind us.
Here's the sun.
Here, yeah. We still have the moon out, which is slowly eclipsing, and it's still cold. So it's now about 7:04 a.m. and over my shoulder you probably cannot see anything, but through the stacks of the refinery back there, we can just barely make out a little bit of the moon left. It's about 2/3 the way covered with Earth's shadow.
Now take a look. The top portion of the moon is covered. Again, with the supposed bolt Earth theory, the bottom portion of the moon should be eclipsed, not the top. Keep watching.
Turning a sort of pale orange, pinkish color. So with the bright morning sun coming up, there's not enough contrast to be able to see the moon there. We can still see it just a little bit. What I find very interesting is I was expecting the shadow to come upward across the moon as it would go down and it would pass into shadow, and actually it's going the other way around. The shadow, as the moon is here, the shadow is creeping down across the moon, even though the sun's coming up over here, and that must be because of the moon's rotation around the Earth. It's moving farther up, even though the sun's light is actually coming from over there. It's actually coming underneath the Earth.
So he's saying the light is coming underneath the Earth, the ball. There's no way. This guy's trying to figure things out based on the lies in the science books. He can't get around it.
The sun is here, the Earth is here, and the moon is back here, and this light was coming under the Earth, but the moon must be rotating around even though we're turning, so it looks like the moon is going down. It's kind of an optical illusion. It's pretty cool. So the sun is scheduled to set at 7:08.
He says optical illusion. It reminds me of this video. I might as well show it now. And I played this clip before with the weatherman trying to explain away why you can see the Chicago skyline 60 miles across Lake Michigan. Take a look and take a listen.
Found this photo from Grandmere State Park. This is from Joshua Nowicki. And what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage.
Again, I pointed this out before. With superior mirages, they would be inverted, not like this. So again, when the foundations are lie, they have to keep lying to keep their lie together, keep their lie intact. I don't know if he's just playing stupid or what, but definitely this is no mirage. Let's take a look a little bit, listen to a little bit more
Of the Chicago skyline. Very interesting. Here's what's happening. This is a good example of a superior mirage. So Joshua was on the Lake Michigan shore. He was looking towards the west, and Chicago's beyond the horizon. Should not be able to see it. However, with the right conditions, we have an inversion. We have cold air near the cold lake water and some relatively warmer air above it. This will bend the image of that skyline back towards the viewer. And so typically we would not be able to see this. This image would be viewable from much, much higher in the sky.
And as I pointed out before, a superior mirage is inverted, just like this. And you saw that Chicago skyline? It was right side up. You didn't see that inverted mirage. The guy's flat out lying or just misinformed. And another example of a superior mirage. Again, you see the inversion. And again, another image, another photo of the Chicago skyline. And obviously, these buildings are not inverted. Also note, the sun is much closer to us than we're told as well.
They have taken the hearts and minds of our leaders. They have recruited the rich and the powerful, and they have blinded us to the truth.
Just like the preacher man said, and they live, they've been blinded to the truth. And the truth has always been in plain sight. There's so many clocks with the moon and the sun on them. And you'll see that hour hand next to the moon and the minute hand next to the sun. That's exactly how the moon and sun work. With the moon moving slow and the sun relatively moving at a faster rate. Now, taking a look at this model here with the flat earth with the sun and the moon revolving above the flat Earth. Again, much closer than we're told. Nowhere near 93 million miles away. More like 3,000 miles away. So again, understand, the moon moves much slower and the sun moves at a faster rate. Now understanding, bring this down here a little bit, why you get the polar nights and the 24-hour sunlight in Norway and Alaska. When the sun is positioned closest to Alaska and Norway, it's basically rotating over these regions. And that's why you get these 24-hour daylights during specific times of the year. And that's why, again, certain points of the year you're going to get constant darkness down in Antarctica. Now understand, you're never going to get 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica, for the simple fact Antarctica is the ring around the world. So, for example, when the sun, say, is positioned right here and is moving along, of course, it cannot cover the whole ring and go round and round and cover it. It can only take place near the so-called North Pole. So this is a very short video explaining the polar nights. Now quickly explain the polar nights. Here in Svalbard, Norway, you can see this image here. Now let's take a look at it on the map. And this is, of course, the false map that we are given in the history books in the schools. So again, it's that simple. Why you get 24-hour nights and 24-hour days in this region up here. Again, with the so-called North Pole, with Alaska and Norway in this region. The sun altering its position on the flat Earth. Down low here, you don't hear about, again, 24-hour daylight in southern Argentina, Chile, and New Zealand, South Africa. Doesn't happen because, again, on the flat Earth, which makes the most sense, the globe Earth makes no sense whatsoever, easily explained with a simple demonstration. I'm getting a lot of questions about satellites. You know, this is their evidence that the Earth is a ball. Now let's take a look at these images of these satellites. Do these look real to you? I want you people that talk about satellites all the time to show me a real image of a satellite. All you get are these CGI images, not a single real image of a satellite anywhere. Why is that? All we get is this fake garbage. You get a CGI satellite, you get a CGI planet, all bogus, 100%. So, for all you people coming to my channel, talking about satellites, make a video, produce real satellites. You can't do it because they don't exist, period. Supposedly, close to 3,000 satellites up in space. Again, all we get is this fake garbage. Now let's look at what ISS has to produce as far as real satellites. Get that fake garbage. You get this. All CGI, computer animated. Looks like a video game. Where are the satellites? You don't see any because they don't exist. Look at this. Wow. You believe this is real?
Scientists vote that the Earth is flat. Scientists vote that the Earth is flat.